Hey, everybody. So glad you could join us again for Tuesday Chats. Now, for those of you who have been on the journey with us before, you know that Tuesday Chats is just a half hour or so conversation with someone else who's in business, where we get to explore about everything relating to business and life and why we do what we do and so many other things. So today I am joined by Ben Wendel from BoltBlue Web and Marketing. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Should have these things right in front of me. So Ben and I have known each other for a couple of years. We've been on a bit of a journey together with our training, and we've had some very interesting conversations over our time. But we've never really stopped and talked in depth about our businesses. So I'm really looking forward to finding out more about how your day-to-day works with your business, Ben. So would you please introduce yourself to everyone and let people know who you are and what you do?
Yeah, sure. So as you said, my name is Ben Wendel, and I run essentially a web and marketing company called BoltBlue. And I've been in business for close to 20 years now, and it's been this business that's just evolved over time. I started out doing graphic design, which moved into commercial printing, which then moved into newsletter marketing, then moved into automations, and then finally it sort of landed in this digital marketing and web space. And it's always been about how do we help people get their business out there, how do they grow their business. And there's been lots and lots of iterations. But essentially now what we do is we help businesses to generate leads through their website primarily. And we mainly work with service-based businesses now. So when people want to have their business show up on Google and, if they're searching to try and get a bunch of leads coming in, that's where we really specialize, especially in that local sort of someone's looking for a local plumber or looking for a local pest control. They're the sorts of businesses that we just have a system that just works gangbusters. So
Nice.
Yeah, that's primarily what we do.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? When you've got, so many businesses have capacity to do like international work, even if they are service-based. And I think that local marketing, a lot of people seem to miss that, don't they?
Yeah, I think the issue is a lot of what's out there as far as the strategies for businesses is people go on YouTube and they listen to big podcasters talk about you need to build a big personal brand and do all this content marketing. And while that works if you've got a global audience, if you're geographically restricted to 20 kilometers from your business presence, like building a big personal brand and following some of these influencers sort of ideas, it's just kind of the wrong thing to do as far as to generate those local results. So often people overcomplicate it, and that's where usually if you just show up when people are looking for what you're selling, and you just you're the local guy that does that thing, it's a pretty simple system. Just show up. People just want to know, are you local? Can you do it? Can I trust you? And how do I get in touch? If you can just quickly show up that way, you don't need to be doing social media content, doing all this extra stuff. Often I find a big part of what I need to do is actually dispel some of those, everyone thinks they're doing it wrong and that they need to have these giant social media presences. And look, for certain industries, it's absolutely necessary to have that content and build out that thing. But yeah, it really comes down to the business that you're working with.
Yeah. Yeah. So who are your favorite clients to work with?
Look, when it comes down to it, the clients that we work best with, it's always when we get the best results. That's the funnest ones. And in particular, where we can just have stupidly good results. And usually that comes from people who have existing websites that are just crap. And when I say crap, it's not that they necessarily look bad or that they don't function. It's that they haven't been set up with the intent to generate leads. They've kind of just been set up as a bit of a brochure. Hey, look, I tend to find people in creative industries tend to have the worst performing sites because they're so focused on their sites looking really good. So their sites look amazing. They have all these animations that pop in, and then they have the menu in some obscure place, but it lacks some of the general function. It might look good, and they probably have their friends saying, wow, your site looks amazing. But does it actually get people to reach out? And does it clearly say what they do and make people want to reach out? Usually not the case. My favorite is when we've got a site that's just missing some of those foundational things. I often look at the conversion rate of a site. So this is how many people who come to the site actually reach out and fill out a web form or pick up the phone. Now, what I tend to find is a lot of sites will be somewhere between 1% to 2%. So it's actually that low. So you're looking at 1 in 100, 1 in 50 are actually reaching out. Now, I've seen some that are significantly worse than that. It's more like 1 in 500. Now, with any of those, that's where there's massive uplift. If something's converting at 1%, our sites, typically we aim to get them up to around 7 to 12%. So if it's currently ranking at, converting at 1%, and then we can launch it and get it to 10%, overnight,
Yeah.
they have a 10x uplift in leads. And it's when we see that sort of stuff, that's when I get really excited, and it's fun because you just to know the difference that you're making in that business just by literally just changing their website around. That's where we have the most fun. Obviously, we love working with new businesses and getting them set up, but it's not quite the same as getting something that's not working and turning it working. And generally, especially if they've already got a lot of traffic to their site, it's like overnight, no extra money. And yeah, you just see that immediately. And obviously, there's certain industries where we tend to do better than others, or we've done them before, we know what we're doing, and we can get those results a lot easier.
Yeah, I would think too. Am I right in assuming that, like, if you've got someone who's fresh in business or for whatever reason they're building a new website and you get those results versus someone who's been like super jaded and you've just done an uplift, right? It's about like that starting point. Like they both end up excited, but one's like already a little bit more keen because it's all fresh and new versus the, I've been doing this forever and it just doesn't work.
Yeah, and I've had that sometimes where we've launched sites and the client's happy with the results, but like sometimes like you don't realize how good this is performing, and they don't because they haven't had the negative experience.
Yeah.
Like sometimes we've got some sites that are converting at 17 to 20%. Like these are really high converting websites, and I get all goofy and excited about it, thinking, oh my God, like this is so good. And they're like, oh yeah, we're getting heaps of leads from our site. And I'm like, yeah, you don't realize that's not what you normally get when you put a website up. There's these things that we've done that have gotten that result, and it's always great to get that feedback. I just got off a call just before this with a client. We launched their site back in January, and they ran some Google ads for about sort of 6-7 months, and they had to turn them off a couple of months ago. And I was sort of just saying, how's everything going? And she's like, oh yeah, we're fully booked till March, and we unfortunately just can't get enough staff on to cover all the work we've got. They've got this big bottleneck with staffing at the moment, but it's just good to know that they don't have that lead issue. It's like they've essentially got a tap that they can turn on when they're ready. And that's pretty much the problem we try to solve for businesses, is just turn leads into pretty much a math equation where it's like, okay, if you need an extra 100 leads, then, or maybe it's $50 a lead, so okay, well, if you want $500 of traffic, will get you this, and it's just becomes an easy problem to solve, as opposed to one of these things, I have no idea how I'm going to get leads.
Yeah, that predictability. There's such a there's such a freedom in that. I literally, in the call that I was in earlier today, wrote down a quote that I had been told years ago about there's the freedom in the discipline, right? And there's that discipline of knowing that this is what your like conversion rate is. Like these are the systems you've got in place. This is the results you've gotten before. And like you said, I want 10 more leads, so I'll spend $500. There's a discipline that relates to that then also gives you that outcome that you're looking for, and ultimately that freedom of choice, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, love that. So in all the work that you get to do, is that your favorite stuff, or are there other things about it that you love even more with your work?
Look, when I started, a big part of it was the creativity. It was, I started out as a graphic designer. I used to love, graphic design, and you get pretty jaded as a graphic designer when you start out because you think you know everything and, oh my God, this looks amazing. You present it to a client and they're like, oh, actually that's crap and I want it this way, this way, this way. And then you do what they say and you think it looks pretty ordinary now because you did what they said. And then it's almost this like, your passion gets punched down and you're just like, oh, I've got to do what they want, not what I want. And it was all about how it looked back when I started there. But that creativity is in me, and it's like I love solving problems. I love creating things. So I get that creative itch scratched with websites. But as we've scaled, I've pulled out of a lot of the day-to-day doing. Like we build the systems and we've got a team that goes and implements a lot of it now. So I was worried that I would lose that. Oh, I want to go in there and be the one building it and using my creativity. But now what happens is I pretty much will have a couple of meetings with clients, maybe three hours most dealing with these clients, and the team does the rest. Yeah. And then I look at it at the end and see these incredible websites that not only work well, but just look incredible. And I just look at it and think, wow. And it's so weird to be able to take credit for that. It's like, I haven't done any of that creative effort. And I see this site that looks way better than I could do if it was me on my own. And to think, like, I've built the process and the system that's creating these incredible sites and results for people. I guess, there's this feeling of pride that comes in when you're actually building that and seeing those results, and also just seeing the team also get really proud of the results and excited when we launch these new projects. I think that's probably the other thing as well is as I'm moving out of the day-to-day, building that team, building the culture in the business has been really fun and rewarding. And it's been a bit of a massive learning curve to go through this and just, you get it wrong and then you hire someone new and then it doesn't work out and you hire someone new. But I kind of feel like I've done it enough now that I'm not a newbie anymore. I'm certainly not an expert yet, but I'm in grade 3.
Just
I know
your pen license.
that's it. Yeah, I'm on to subtraction, not quite to multiplication yet. That's how it feels. But I know I've got the right structures, so I know it's just a matter of time and I'll be proficient.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so cool. I love hearing that because it's certainly with the choices that I've made with my business, I haven't gotten to that point yet of building those structures. And I can see me picking your brains in future. That's amazing. So flip side of that then, what is it with all the things that you get to do? What is it that you dislike the most?
All right, if I really look at it, it's largely to do with when things go wrong in the business. And I'm sure everybody can relate to this. When you do a project and it doesn't go according to plan, for us, often it's to do with the results aren't what we promised. Now, what I've found in the past is when I was in the business doing it all, I was very, very intentional about what I could say we could and couldn't do.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say, all right, well, we're going to launch this site. I expect it'll be somewhere between 5 to 7%. Here's what the intended outcome is. If we launch this site, you should be getting this many leads. It shouldn't cost you more than this. And I've got a fairly good idea of what it's going to be. And I know sometimes it's not going to be 100% where it needs to be. But when we get the results and then it's not there, and then I have to have those conversations, when I'm in control and I can go and make a few adjustments and be involved with it, I always found that was a lot easier to have those conversations because I could just go in and do the work, get it done, move mountains to make them happy. What I've found now is as I've grown, I need to be okay sometimes with letting people down as far as like the results. We still do what we need to make those changes, but I'm not the one directly in control of it. So I need to be very cautious about making those promises because I'm very cautious with who I give my word to and what I say we're going to do. So if I tell something we're going to do that, then we're going to do it. And it's one of those things where now if we don't hit that, then often it'll be me saying to people, well, look, let's pause your billing until we're getting the result. Let's make some tweaks. Let's make some adjustments. Let's get you the result. But I'm just not as in control of it. So I find that those conversations stress me out. When you know something's not going according to plan and you get that phone call and you're just like, oh no, I've been procrastinating on this. We're not getting the results. It's not where it needs to be. I like it when everything's rosy, everything's working. Look, generally that comes down to selecting the right clients and doing the work that we like to do. But that for sure is probably the part I dislike. Other than that, I'm not huge on the systems and finances side of the business. I've learned enough to be able to do them, but if I could pay someone else to do them entirely, I probably would. It's not my fun zone.
Yeah. And can I just say that of all the people, like I've done well over 100 interviews like this now so far with Tuesday Chats. And I would reckon about at least 70% finances, admin, all that. Because it's not my favorite space either. And it's literally one of the very first things that I've outsourced in terms of getting the support that I need so that's because it's so important, right? But that's where I need a lot of support to keep it on track because I'm on the front foot and the doing and the creating rather than the tidying up in the background and staying on track in the financial rails that exist at the moment. So I hear you. So as you build though, what's the dream? What are you working towards?
I want this business to really get to a point that it has a almost mind of its own, that it's growing on its own without me. And when I say without me, it's I'm not, other than the vision for it and maybe some high level leadership, I'm not doing any of the day-to-day. I'm not doing the sales. I'm not doing any of that. And that really frees me up to really focus on just being out there, creating just opportunities for people to come and get their needs met. Because I want it to be what we've developed makes a difference and it transforms businesses and it's really good. But there's a limitation to what we can do as far as how many we can do and how many clients we can service. And what I'm finding is my time gets so eaten up in the sales and day-to-day that, if we're doing 10 sites a month, it's great. We can make a big difference. But still, that's only 120 businesses that we're really transforming each year. But how can I transform thousands or tens of thousands of businesses every year? Mm-hmm. Whether that's us doing or taking our processes and systems and then turning them into something that people can go and use. Because yeah, there's so much dodgy information out there around websites. And look, I don't think it's intentional a lot of the time. It's that people don't know. I see so many marketing companies, they charge thousands of dollars for these websites, and then I look at them and there's some of what I would call the basics are just missing. And sometimes all it is me going into a website and saying, you know what, if you just put call to action button here, 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 and here, let's change it from this text to that text. You know what, change a couple of these headlines, and let's change your form from, just usually most web forms have what I call the answering machine. It's please leave your name, number, and email, and we'll get back to you. It's very, very much just name, phone number, email, message. When that gets changed to more of a conversational style, almost like you would answer a phone. Oh, what are you interested in today? Oh, this is what you're looking for. Okay, based on that, there's another question and another question. When the web form changes to that, when you're actually requesting a quote and it asks, well, what do you want? How big's your house? Do you need this? Do you need that? Those web forms perform so much better. And these little tweaks, like I said, the difference between a 2% conversion rate, 10% conversion rate, it's not the whole site that makes a difference. It's usually those little tiny implementations. Often it's just sharing those things with people can make the difference. I really want to free up my time so that I'm able to really get those messages out to businesses, whether that's them being able to go implement that themselves or allowing us to provide that to them, whether that's us doing it or providing them education to do it. But yeah, I really want to help more business owners out there, and I enjoy marketing. I look at it as a giant problem to be solved. It's kind of as that creative itch gets scratched, where it's like, oh, what's the problem? Okay, we need this, let's try this and try that, and it's fun. But yeah, doing it on a sort of more scalable level is the goal.
Yeah, I love that. I see like coaching programs and courses and stuff in your future, right? To be able to get particularly those who want the guidance so they can do it themselves. Like the DIY kind of options, I guess.
Yeah, and I think what I've struggled with the DIY options is because there's a technical aspect a lot of the time, it can be very difficult because the average person, the minute you start, because what I find is the tracking aspect is what most people struggle with. So they can understand, oh yeah, if we put buttons here, if we do this, but it's more, well, how do we measure it? How do we actually see that? How do we have that coming into a dashboard that we can read and see, okay, well, what is our conversion rate? How do we know that that's configured so that if there is a conversion, that it's logged into some sort of database or spreadsheet so they can see that? So getting that part is often where people get a little bit lost, and then they kind of just throw their hands up in the air and be like, oh no, it's too complicated. So it's how do you bridge that gap of actually being able to technically explain how something can be done, making sure they've got the measurability. Because usually you can just pay someone on Upwork or soon to be, or even already, just tell AI to make these changes on your website. Okay, on my website, AI, go and change this, put this button here, put that button there. Like, so once you know, the actual implementation is not that difficult. And that's it's exciting because hopefully a lot more people can have these high converting websites and get these results for their businesses.
Yeah, but also, like you said, you want to know where that change has come from, like which change has generated which, which result, so that you can know to either keep it there or not as you go and make the next lot of adjustments, in a couple of months' time. So
yeah. We take almost a hive approach to a lot of our sites. So what we tend to do is test little things across little sites, and then as we find something that reliably works across most of them, we go and implement it across all our sites. So then you create something new, it works, it test, okay, it's good, let's apply it to everything. Do another thing, test, apply it to everything. So we're not doing all these individual tests. It's kind of like we take the best practices and then distill that into our new templates and models. Whenever we do a new site, it's always using the best results that we've gotten across all our sites. And look, there are individual changes you have to test on a site by site, but we're kind of at that point where we can kind of knock it pretty much in the ballpark. I'd say 85% of the time it lands exactly where we want it to. And the other 15, we just need to tweak a couple of things, and within a few months we can get it to where it needs to be.
Yeah. I mean, when you're doing that kind of test and measure and then implementation across that, I mean, that doesn't surprise me at all, right? Because you've got such a strong database that you're running from in terms of this is best practices in our experience, but this is why, as opposed to just, oh yeah, I learned this somewhere, so I'm going to implement it, right?
Yeah. Well,
which is what some people are doing. I get
it brings up a good point though, because so many people hear something on YouTube and then they go and try it.
Yeah.
And they just assume it's going to do what the person said. And what I tend to find when I've tried a lot of that, it's done the complete opposite.
Yeah, really.
And in particular, like, even though I sort of mentioned about the web forms earlier, a big thing a lot of people say is if you want a high conversion rate, you want to ask less questions. You know, if you only ask for a name and an email, you'll get more people filling it out than if you ask for name, phone number, and email. Or if you have a field asking for more information. I've actually found the complete opposite is true. If I have 7 or 8 questions, I'll get a higher conversion rate than if I have 3 questions.
Yeah, really.
And I've tested it across hundreds of sites. And look, obviously it's got to be the right questions. But if someone's requesting a quote and you say name, phone number, and leave us a message, it's very different. Like if I'm ordering some roller shutters, like what do I put in that message? Do you want to know that I've got 5 windows that need covering? Do you need the measurements of all of those? Do you need to know what if it's a brick house or a wood house? Like you don't know. I don't know what you need. Where instead, if I'm asking questions, okay, well, what type of house is it? How many bedrooms? How many windows do you need? If the web form's guiding you through the information that you want, I find people ask those questions, they'll fill it out, and you'll find once somebody's 5 or 6 questions into a web form, they've already committed a minute and a half of their life to it. So then when you suddenly ask, oh, what's your first name and email? If they decide to stop the form, they're already 90 seconds in. They're wasting 90 seconds of their life if they decide to leave now. Where when you have a web form and it immediately says, what's your first name and email before you start? Clicking back's easy because you haven't invested any time or energy. So there's little things like that where I've seen just test it, see a result, test it, see a result. And eventually you see these patterns. And look, sometimes it works in some industries. And I find there's a lot of legacy stuff. So I don't know if you've seen probably across the internet, you see it everywhere, prices ending in 7, it's like $97 course or $197 course or, and if you look back to where that started, a lot of it was, I think it was Dan Kennedy used to do a lot of direct mail back in the 90s and they tested it quite intensively there, and the 97 worked way better than the $2,000 price, 1997 would work better than 2000 because it sounds a bit smaller and it's a little bit off. It's not the 99, it's the 97. Now that was revolutionary at that point 25 years ago because nobody else was doing the 7. Now it's become standard practice. You'd probably have a better result putting a 9.3 there. Do you know what I mean? Standing out, being different. Yet everybody defaults to the 9.7 because that's the 197 course and the $97 course. And it's just been this legacy thing that people do. I'm pretty sure if you go and test those things, you'll get a result and go with that. I actually tend to find that whole numbers work better than the 7 numbers, especially in the marketing space because it sounds very markety.
Yes. So 100%. If I read a 1997, I'm like, oh my God. Whereas if I'm like 2000, yep, that's okay. That like it's $3 difference, right? And it's actually slightly more. But in my case, as a consumer, I feel like, yes, they're just asking for $2,000. It's straight up front. It feels more like honest. There's more integrity in just saying it's a $2,000 package.
Yeah. I feel like the minute you put a 7, it's like, okay, this person's done a marketing course and they're following advice. And it's very much, I don't know, and I feel like it's become so mainstream that people know that. If people in business who have done any education or training have seen that and they kind of don't fall for it. It might be a little bit different if you're B2C and the consumers who have never had any business education, perhaps it's a little bit different. But certainly if you're in the business or consulting space, like get rid of the 7 is my my advice. And try something different. I mean, if you really want to do something different, do $2013. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's interesting actually because I was I reckon maybe middle of last year, I was noticing just out, like you used to go to like, well, I'm thinking of like the cheap shops because there's one that's right near me here where I am at the moment. And they used to always have like something 95, right? Like $5.95 is their pricing point. And on those big, ugly red signs with the black writing and the white bubble in the middle, right? Like the really just cliche, like cheap pricing. And now instead of it being $5.95, everything is $6, or like it's just round, solid numbers. There's no .00, there's no extra line. It's just really, really simple pricing. And well, I don't know when it actually changed, but I kind of noticed it like, somewhere through last year. I think that it seems to be just coming in through everything. And even with the training that I've been at in the last couple of months, it's that similar thing. Like just go with the whole numbers, go with, like you said, if it was $2013 versus 2000 or versus 1997. So
no, for sure.
It's interesting to watch. Are there any things that you've kind of looked at in terms of stuff that used to be really effective, like things like the pricing, but I'm asking more from a like website specific space, the stuff that used to be really effective and was like market standard that is now like completely flipped?
Yeah, probably the one that jumps to my mind is video. On websites, there was a point where video was everything. You needed video for this and a video for that. And if you actually think about it, the attention span is getting shorter and shorter and shorter, and most people are on their mobiles. And the idea of sitting there, like if I get to a website of sitting there and turning my sound on and listening to a video, I'm not doing that most of the time. Certainly not in especially if I'm looking for a local carpet cleaner. Do you know what I mean? It might be very different if I'm on YouTube and that's I'm looking for education and I'm looking to build out something. But if I'm just going to look for my local whatever and I get to their website and there's a video, I'm skipping past it. I'm scrolling past it. I'm not clicking it. So I think a lot of people have invested a lot of money over the years in video, and I tend to find they use it because they have it. They're like, oh, the video is going to convert better than text. And I tend to find that's not the case anymore. It's a little bit different if you're running something like Instagram or, you're using it in your ads, but on the actual website itself, not so much. Yeah, I haven't found that's been working very well anymore.
What are you finding in terms of like imagery from, say, professional photographers versus, people taking, well, effectively selfies or similar? Well, my assumption is that across social media that it's probably much of a muchness to a degree. How is that flowing through those websites and those sorts of things in your experience? When
it comes down to it, the image needs to be kind of authentic looking if possible. What you want is you don't want it to look too stocky. You don't want it to look like, and I think it's really important as well to look at the locality of the business. So if you're an Australian business and you're a Australian, let's say, plumber, the way Australian plumbers look is very, very different to how American plumbers look. The Aussie tradie, he comes in a collared shirt and he's got his tool belt and it's just a polo. So where in America, they all have overalls. They look like, Mario. It's
yes.
So what I often see, you'll see like a plumber website and they'll have this stock photo of this guy in the overalls, and it's just like there's a disconnect because the local person, it doesn't look like what you expect. So I do find that that's really important, that you've got it, the locality works well. As far as the having the professional shots can be good, but you want the professional shots to be still not too polished. You want them to look like it's just been somebody out taking a photo of your guys doing the jobs. That can work well. The other thing we're now competing with is AI imagery, which is getting so incredibly good, and it's also getting very good at knowing the local stuff. So if I say, jump into Midjourney or even Gemini and ask it for, I'm looking for a photo of a local plumber wearing a red polo, and if I say Australian plumber, it will give me a different image than if I ask for an American plumber. So it knows the difference now. And it also, you'll find that when you ask for Australian, they generally have more facial hair. They look a bit more scruffy. The haircuts are different. Like, it does know the locality. You get a few mullets in there.
I was going to say, you get a mullet. My son just got one, and he's about to become a tradie. So.
Yeah. But it does, it knows those little differences, and it also know the differences between like PowerPoints. So if you ask for the American versus Australian, it'll have the different PowerPoints. So it's getting really good at knowing the difference between that sort of stuff. And
nice.
And I mean, we're using it a lot when we get clients who don't provide images, or sometimes what you do is you'll get an image from a client that's really like it's got most of it there, but it's not quite good. And if you just upload that photo to AI and just say, recreate this image but make it look better, it'll just polish it up, and it kind of takes some of the crap. Or you just say, redo this image from a different angle, and it will just change the angle, make it a little bit better. And it's getting so easy to improve images. So often what I say to clients is, look, just go take some crappy photos, we'll chuck it into AI and just tell it to make them look professional.
Yeah.
And it actually does a really good job. Obviously there's still some issues now, but I mean, give it 3 to 6 months, it's going to be even better than it has been. So I think we just need to now just assume that all images are going to be AI in the next couple of years, and that's just going to be a standard. Or more you take your photos to upload to AI to say, this is our team, this is our van, this is what we do, create images for our website, and you'll probably have them all. And it's making our job a lot easier, but also, you'll find that everybody's going to have everything's got to be elevated. The same way that now, look, the content on a lot of websites are elevated now because of AI, and it allows you to have a lot more pages and not have to sit there with the business owner for hours learning about their business. It kind of, for most businesses, AI can do a pretty good job of knowing what they do.
Yep. Is there any sort of penalty, I guess, in terms of like AI searches or SEO searches, that sort of stuff? In terms of SEO searches is not the right terminology. I'm talking about Google searches. Can you tell I'm not a tech person, Ben? But is there any kind of penalty in your experience in terms of using AI generated content like that?
Look, as far as I can tell, there kind of is, but also it's not like it's just if you use AI, it's bad because everybody's using AI. Everybody
Yeah.
knows everyone's using AI. Google knows you're using AI, and it's an inevitability. Everything's going to be AI generated. I think the key is to there's a big difference between telling Google, hey, this is what we do. This is what makes us different. Here's all of our key points and what we do differently, and here's the voice and the tone we want to use, and really guiding AI to get something custom written that it's never written before. So it's like, okay, write us a web copy for this sort of page and this sort of structure with these sorts of things. That's going to give you a much better result than just say, write the content for a plumbing business website. And then you'll just get this generic crap that sounds the same as every other AI generated website. And you'll also find that a lot of the times AI uses things like that long dash that it'll put in the middle of sentences. Are you familiar with that, Terry, at all?
No. What
Have a look at it now. Anytime you see AI generated content, you'll see that where it does a pause, like often when we type, we'll use a full stop or a dash.
Yep.
It uses a long dash. It's like double the, I don't even know how to do it on a keyboard. Like there's not even like hold shift and click this and you can get it. So it's one of those characters that isn't authentic the way you would write normally. So it's not a dash, it's not a full stop or a comma. It's this long dash. And pretty much most generated content, if you're running more than a couple of paragraphs, you're going to get these dashes. GPT does it all the time, and it's a surefire way to say I used AI. And there's a few things like that you'll find are very indicative that AI has been used. And I'd advise most people to remove it. The other thing is overuse of emojis. It's like if you're doing date time, you're inviting someone to someone, and then you've got the little emojis instead of bullets when you're putting the date time. It looks very AI generated. Everyone's doing it the same way. And I do find that you lose a level of authenticity the minute it looks like it's been AI generated. Everyone kind of knows you're doing it, but you kind of want to hide it. So at least it could possibly have been done without AI. And then, but the minute you actually see that it was definitely done by AI, you can't, at the moment you feel like, oh, it's lazy. Oh, that's not authentic. That's them cutting corners. That's how I feel. And I'm sure it does with other people as well at this stage. Maybe that'll not be the case in the future once it becomes a bit more mainstream. But yeah, I think where possible, you want to hide that sort of stuff, at least for the search engines. And also something is just prompt it a second time. Make this sound less like an AI chatbot. Make this sound more authentically like me. Make this sound more in this sort of tone or that sort of tone. Or maybe take another pass of this and critique it as though you were really looking for substance. How could this be improved? And, that one extra pass on a lot of the content makes a big difference. And that's one of the things we've developed with our web system is, it creates the initial pull of the page structure and the copy, but then we've got a second prompt that we use to check that against certain criteria and then rewrite it with that sort of second pass to just ensure we're not getting the ordinary stuff that comes out of it the first pass.
Yeah. It's really fascinating. So I haven't used AI massively. I've done a bit of stuff in ChatGPT and I've got like goodness knows how many conversations started in there. I probably should put some structure to it. But I've used it primarily as like a first draft, maybe second and third. Like I was writing a particular piece that started out with some stuff and I just spoke it to AI. I do love that feature where you can have a conversation with them. And I got a really sexy voice that I talk to. That always helps. But yeah, I love having that conversation, and then out of it, when it generates something for me, a couple of times I've gone, so can you take this and make it like more concise or more powerful or more whatever particular like direction I'm going with it. And it took something like the first time that I actually did this like really intentionally. I was trying to make something that was between 2 and 3 minutes, and I actually read what I'd written because I sat and longhand wrote it initially to get all the ideas out. It was a 10-minute presentation that I initially wrote. And I went, here you go. Then I read it out to it. Please condense this to 2.5 minutes. And done. It was so liberating because it was done so quickly. And what it put out that first time was not what I actually wanted, but it was so close. And so then I was able to do another couple of prompts, and then I still took that and then still changed it slightly, like manually, I guess, in my own, like actually typed it in Word. But the process was just so fast. I love the amount of time it saved me.
I can see that's currently, I think, the best way to be using AI at the moment is you kind of need to know what you're looking for as the output. if you don't know what you're looking for, it's kind of dangerous. So if someone doesn't know what a good website that converts well looks like, and they go to AI right now and say, write me the web copy for this sort of business, what they're going to get out is kind of dodgy crap that doesn't work. Because what it's been trained on is all the websites on the internet that typically don't work.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And it's like, I mean, it reminds me of that, when you're an expert in a certain field, like you read the newspaper and you'll read it, see an article about what you're an expert in, and you think this is absolute bullshit. These people have no idea what they're talking about. Yet then you'll go and believe all the other stories that you have no idea about, like they're true and accurate. And it's exactly the same with AI. Is when you're an expert in it, you prompt it and you think, oh my God, like you have no idea what you're talking about. Like that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong. Yet then you go talk. I'll go into cooking and here's a recipe and this and that, and I just like follow it like it's God and it knows everything. And it's this. You're very quick to forget that you actually don't know if what you're getting out is good. I'll often just like follow its recipes or do this and just assume that it's all going to be good. And for the most part, you just assume that it gets it all right. But if you actually don't know, it's still a bit dangerous to be just, especially when it comes to your marketing and content. You need to check at this stage. I mean, I'm sure at some point you can train it up to the point where it's pretty good. But got to be cautious.
It's interesting, isn't it, to see. Well, even as you said, like this is AI is trained to pull from all of the internet. We know that all of the internet is not true and accurate, right? That there are some people out there who are putting things out that are straight out a four-letter word. And yet AI doesn't have the capacity to go, this is okay, this is not, so this is what I'll draw from. So of course it's going to feed us answers that are not correct because of what it can draw from. So but yes, you're right. We just, there's what's the word I'm searching for? Well, we trust it, right? It's seen as an expert, and it's so. It also too, I think, in the language that comes from AI and anything that I've received, it's so certain that this is absolutely right. Right? There's no, in terms of the language that it uses to answer your questions.
Yeah, well, AI search is something that we're really on the forefront of at the moment, which is when somebody. Let's say I've spilled some wine on the carpet, and the first thing I do is I'll go in there and be like, I've just spilled red wine on the carpet. How do I get it out? And it'll say, okay, you can do this here. Here's a few home remedies. And I'm just like, just tell me who I should call. Who can I call to get it out? Now it's going to know where I'm located. It's going to then do a Google search. It's going to get me, a bunch of businesses that can come and help me. And it's then going to say, I suggest you call this or this or this. Here's 3 people nearby that you can call. And these people specialize in removing red wine stains, and it'll just pull from the internet and just hand it to people on a sort of platter, like this is what you need. Now that is completely taken from their website. So if that company says on their website, we're red wine specialists, AI believes exactly what they said. So it doesn't necessarily look at the testimonials. Now it might take those into account, but if someone just says on their internet, on their website, we do this, we specialize in that, that's all that's needed for AI to come and tell you that they're the expert in that field. At this stage, that's all it takes. I'm sure in the future it's going to get better at recommending things, but it's a little bit, the amount of trust we give it is kind of not probably not warranted sometimes, because it's that simple. It's just what you say about yourself on your website is what it regurgitates. It's if I go up there and say I'm an expert and I'm a heart surgeon, it'll, if I'm in a certain area, it can go and do that just because I say that. You know what I mean? It's kind of dangerous.
So we now just need to start referring to you as Dr. Ben, right?
Yep, that's it.
Oh man, it's a really exciting but also equally kind of scary to think about, isn't it? Like it's fascinating to watch it. I know AI has been around for a really long time, but I wasn't aware of it really until ChatGPT was released. And it's been such a fascinating thing to watch it. And I'm just touching the edges. I'm not right in amongst the thick of it like you are. But it's really exciting to watch and to see and to try and stay up with it enough that I understand what's going on, at least, even if I'm not particularly proficient at using it.
It's just fun. Like that's the thing I'm finding is these things that would have cost a lot of money and time to do before, you can just do for fun. You decide you want to create a quick app, you can do it in a matter of hours. You want to create music, there's these awesome AIs that can go and make songs and music in a matter of minutes, and you get these like studio quality music about whatever you want in whatever style you want, and you just give this quick prompt and you've got it. And like this is music that you look at and for me to have made that before, to actually create that would take months and, thousands of dollars to get that level of quality. And it's just in an instant now. And it's fun because these creative little passions, if you want to write a book or create some art or you want to do these things, you can just do so effortlessly now. And I think that's the way the future's going, is it's just, you're going to have the world at your fingertips as far as creativity goes. And I do think, unfortunately, creativity is going to be very difficult to monetize in the future now. I think it's, you're probably going to be more rewarded from a distribution standpoint, but everything's going to be so custom tailored to exactly what you want.
Yeah, it's such a big shake-up, isn't it, that's coming. I mean, even like you're saying before about the stuff you can do with photographers, photographs, and the way that that's going to impact how a photographer can make their money. It's it'll be an interesting journey to watch, I guess.
Yeah, well, that's it. I mean, if you want a wedding photographer, it's like, well, yeah, you'll probably do the initial wedding photos, but then use AI to make them look better. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, other than that, when it comes to professional photos, it's not nearly as necessary the way it used to be.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? But Ben, I've loved chatting with you, but I do need to wrap it up now. Before we go, though, one last question. I'd love for you to share your biggest tip. Like, what is that when people think about Ben Wendel, what is it that you want them to remember or to think about?
Look, probably two different things. I kind of don't really care too much about what they think about in a sense. But as far as the biggest tip, though, the thing that I've learned that's made the biggest difference in my world, it hasn't actually been anything to do with business or websites or anything like that. But the thing that's really shifted in me over the past few years is a level of self-acceptance. And it's probably the discovery that who I thought I was is not who I was. So I thought I was being authentic. Like, I thought I got to the bottom of this authenticity thing and I'm being real. I'm being the real me. But when I discovered that I was lying to myself, I was wearing a mask, and I'd convinced myself that this mask of who I was the real me. And there's this effort that it takes to keep that mask on, and you're trying to be somebody that you're not, that you're just trying to be this version of yourself that you think you should be. I should be the perfect dad and the perfect husband and the nice guy, and I'm out there doing this. And there was such freedom when I was able to take that off and admit to myself, wait a second, I'm not that person. There's aspects of that mask that I love and I'm really good at being that, but there's also all this stuff underneath that, I have a bit of shame around this or shame around that. But it's like when you own that and you can actually start to be yourself, God, life gets so much easier and so much funner and so much more effortless. You're not constantly trying to be someone you're not. Look, there's so many things I've done to be able to release that mask, but just consider, what mask are you wearing that you think is you? Because I think even who I think I am now, I'm sure there's still layers of masks that need to be peeled back. But actually getting to that point of just being curious about, who am I really? And I'd just say, go down that journey. It's worth it.
I 100% agree with you. 100%. In some ways, like that whole revealing has been similar in my world. And it's in doing the work, it's literally improved every single part of my world, every part that you can think of. It's made it easier. Yeah.
Yeah. Same with me. And the business is the reflection of you. So if your business isn't where it wants to be, chances are there's some masks to be taken off, and that'll probably shift whatever needs to shift anyway. Yeah. I kind of feel that's the biggest leverage thing you can do in your business, is to work on stripping back to who you really are, and let your sort of genius shine through is a big thing.
Yep. I don't think I could love that more, Ben. That's just awesome. Thank you so much. Absolutely appreciate all that you've shared today and spending so much time talking with me. Love the fact that we connected so many years ago and have continued on that journey, even though we happen to live on opposite sides of the country for the moment. But thank you, Ben. And looking forward to further conversations in the future.
Thank you for having me. It's been a good chat. Thanks, Terry.
Thanks, Ben.
All right.